Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Carol Castillon. I'm with Aging and Independent Services. I'm the Deputy Director of Operations, and I will be your MC for today. Welcome. You guys are in the housing track, so if you're not here for housing, you are in the wrong area. I will be introducing our first speaker, Ms. Tricia Tasto-Levine from the Supportive Housing. She is a Supportive Housing Director. She has over 20 years of experience in housing programs with expertise in legislative activities, supportive housing development, and operations. She is currently Wakeland's Supportive Housing Director. Previously, she provided training and technical assistance to local communities develop and operate supportive housing. She oversaw legislative activities, and she served as a project manager for Shelter Partnership, which provides assistance to homeless and housing, nonprofit, and public agencies in Los Angeles. Ms. Tasto-Levine holds a Master of Public Policy from the University of Southern California. I'm not going to hold that against you. I'm a Bruin. And a Bachelor of Arts in Political Science from Loyola Marymount University. So join in me and welcome Ms. Tricia Tasto-Levine.
Okay. Can everyone hear me? Okay, great. Let me just figure this out. Okay, so again, my name is Tricia Tasto-Levine is how we pronounce it. It's one of those last names that is a little bit difficult to pronounce. But again, I work for Wakeland Housing and Development Corporation, and I'm their Supportive Housing Director. So that means I sort of oversee and am responsible for any housing that they develop that's specifically for special needs populations, and that's really my background. But I'm here generally to talk to you today more about, in general, what affordable housing is and how to navigate the system, especially here in San Diego. So with that, I'm going to just tell you a little bit about Wakeland. So Wakeland, we are a nonprofit developer of affordable housing and permanent supportive housing. We're based here in San Diego, but we do develop throughout the state of California. To date, we've developed over 6,500 homes or units at over 40 developments. All our units are high quality and well managed. All of our units are multifamily and rental units, so we do not develop home ownership units. That's not the business that we're particularly in. And we do, again, develop housing for low-income individuals and families, and we also develop housing for some special needs populations. So what is affordable housing? So according to the federal government, affordable housing housing is affordable if you pay 30% or less of your income for rent and utilities. It's typically reserved for people who are earning about 60% or less of area median income. And I'll have another chart later on that will show what that sort of looks like here in San Diego. You will sometimes find some units that may be affordable that go up as high as maybe 80% of area median income. But most of the housing that we develop is for people who earn 60% or less of the local area median income. So again, affordable housing can be rental or home ownership, but for Wakeland Housing and the business that we're in, we develop only rental housing. And just to be clear, affordable housing, the type that I'm going to be talking about, is really independent housing. I'm not talking specifically about assisted living or skilled nursing here today. We develop independent housing for people who can live independently with supports from family and friends and the community. So this is just some examples of what affordable housing looks like. And affordable housing, these are specifically projects that Wakeland has developed or will be developing. The one on the top right is a rendering, but all the other ones are pictures of some of our developments. So to the left there, that's a development that's about 30 units of affordable housing. It's in the city of Riverside. That's just one example here of outside of San Diego to let you know that we are developing throughout California. But what's unique about this development is it's developed on a what used to be a World War II Army camp. And basically, the property was just unused and sort of went into disrepair. And so the city put out a request for proposal, and we were the most responsive developer. And so they wanted really to serve as much as possible low-income veterans and their families. And so that development has a preference for veterans, and it's all 2 and 3 bedrooms, so it's primarily veterans with and their families living there. So the one on the bottom right is our Parkside development, and this is in downtown San Diego, and it's roughly about 77 units of affordable housing. The one on the left we just developed and opened earlier this year. It's called Lofts on Landis, and it's in Chula Vista, and we did that in partnership with Family Health Centers of San Diego, and that's about 33 units of affordable housing. And then the top right picture is a development called Talmadge Gateway. That's going to open next year in 2017, and it's for older adults age 55 plus who have experienced homelessness and also need services provided by the St. Paul's PACE program that helps them to live independently in their home and not have to move into a skilled nursing facility. So again, that's currently under construction and will open next year. Okay, this is just shows a little bit of what when I talked about area median income in San Diego and the income that folks need to make to be able to qualify for affordable housing, or what they have to make and not exceed. So in general, I just showed here what it is for a 1-person and a 2-person household. But we, of course, develop housing for households that have, 3, 4, 5 family members. So, for example, for a 1-person household, the income range would be roughly $17,000 to $35,000 or $36,000. So somebody couldn't make more than $35,700, for example, if they were a single person to qualify for most of our housing. And again, this is very general. It varies by jurisdiction and it varies by development, but this is to just give you an idea. And the rent, again, would vary. How much somebody would pay for their housing would vary, but in general, for a 1-person household, depending upon their income, they may be paying anywhere from about $400 to about $900 a month for rent. So just a little bit about how developers like Wakeland finance our development. It takes quite a lot of effort and a lot of time. There's not usually one source of funding that can pay for the development. There are developers who have had to cobble together upwards of maybe 10 different funding sources to finance their developments. We're what's called a low-income housing tax credit developer. So we apply for most of our developments, we're applying for tax credits. And there's either 4 or 9% tax credits. The 9% are competitive, and they're highly competitive here in the state of California. But they provide about 60 to 70% of the financing for the development through equity. And then the rest of it usually comes in what we call gap financing. So that comes from like the local jurisdiction that we're in. So maybe the city or the county that's contributing some funding, and then the property would have some conventional debt on it. So there would be some loan from a local bank on the property. And then there's some other miscellaneous programs out there. There's some unique programs that are serving special populations and serving developments that are in transit-oriented districts and things like that we also apply for. So we basically apply for everything and anything that we can to make the development happen. And here in California, it's been difficult from redevelopment. That was one of the largest funding sources for affordable housing development in California, and redevelopment was eliminated a few years ago. So California lost redevelopment was about $2 billion a year. just specifically for affordable housing development. And so I think I saw a statistic recently that in California, we've lost about 80% of the funding that was used to develop affordable housing. So it is difficult, as many of you know, that the needs far exceed the inventory that's out there and the ability for developers such as Wakeland to develop more affordable housing. So these are just some examples of some developers here in San Diego. I just want to give a shout out to one I didn't list here, but they are in the audience, National Core, and they're based out of Los Angeles area, but they do develop housing here in San Diego. So these are just some examples to let you know of some of the organizations that are out there doing this. Some folks, there are nonprofit developers and there are for-profit developers, both that are doing this. So most of these developers will have some senior housing as part of their portfolio. So I'll get into some more details on how to look for affordable housing. But as you're doing that, make sure to call or ask these developers, what developments you have specifically for seniors, if that's something you're interested in. And some of them will be restricted to folks 55 plus. Many of them will be 62 plus. Okay, so finding affordable housing in San Diego. So this is not an easy task. We are not a community that necessarily has a centralized database or sort of a one-stop shop for finding out where this affordable housing is and how to access it. But the developments, and I'll get into more detail of how you can find out about them, you really need, for most of them, you need to call individually and find out how to apply, what their waiting list looks like, what their eligibility information looks like. You'll also want to ask, what special needs populations do they serve, seniors, or do they have units set aside specifically for special needs populations? You want to make sure that you feel like you could qualify for the housing, and then ask how you can get placed on the waiting list. So many of the affordable housing developments do have waiting lists. Oh, yes. The previous, sure. Yep. The slides, so the slides have been shared with the county AIS department, and I don't know if there's a mechanism by which they're going to be posting the information. And there's also, I'm sorry for failed, I think in the back of the room, there is a 2-page document that we put together that has links to a number of resources. And then I think also the county has included something called the Countywide Senior Housing Directory, and it should be in all of your bags that you picked up when you registered, when you checked in. You didn't? Okay. Okay, so we'll try to kind of continue, and you'll see through some more of the slides that we will have some additional resources and links to information. Okay, so again, most of these affordable housing developments do have waiting lists, although for many of them, you are going to find that they're going to be shorter than you're going to find for Section 8, for example. So again, here, this is just an example of some of the listings where you can find some of the resources where you can find affordable housing. All of these are included on the 2-page document that's in the back of the room. So some really great, there's 211 San Diego, and that's for any folks that don't know that I think 211 is here today, but you can call 211. And they're sort of a one-stop resource for a number of resources, and they do have some affordable housing. I don't think they have everything that's here in San Diego, included, but they do have some resources. Both the city and the county of San Diego put out a resource directory every year, and they update it. And again, the back of the room, there's links to where you can find those directories. They're pretty thick, so it was too much to be copying for today. And then Felipe, who's here with the county, will be going into more detail on the county's programs. Yes. Okay. Okay, great. So, okay. So that's the city? Okay. Okay. So they have a senior housing resource directory? Is that what you said? Okay. Okay, thank you. Okay, so again, these are just some examples of where you can find affordable housing. I like the HUD one, and unfortunately, a lot of these resources are online. So, for folks, it's something that you'll want to have access to the internet, or somebody who has access to the internet, or go to your local library to be able to access some of these. The HUD one I found particularly helpful because you can search specifically by which jurisdiction you're interested in, and you can type in that you're really interested in looking for specifically for senior housing. But again, I think you're going to find the directory that the county has put out that's in your bag is going to be probably one of the most useful resources for you. Yes. Oh, okay. I'm not entirely sure, but you can have mine. So afterwards, yeah. And we'll have time once I'm done and Felipe speaks. We will also have plenty of time, hopefully, for Q&A and discussion. Okay. So again, these are just some housing search tips. So one thing I think is helpful is to try to be aware and listen to the news and read the newspaper and look online in terms of developments that are currently under construction, and ask to get on their interest list or their waiting list at that time. So these are some developments that I was able to see that are currently under construction. Atmosphere is a development that we are developing. It's 205 units in downtown San Diego. And if you go to our website, wakelandhdc.com, you can, there's a fillable, there's like a form, and then also a phone number you can call to get on the interest list. And then according to state law, any developments that were funded with redevelopment dollars, the city has to post those developments on their website. And when I looked and saw it, looked like most cities were doing that. Okay, there's one person who seems to be. Okay, so it usually varies by development, but typically at some point closer to the lease-up time or when the building is going to open, the property management company will be contacting anybody that has put their name on the interest list. So it's really important that anytime you do that, that you're updating the property management company with your updated phone number, email address, so they know how to get in touch with you. So I'm going to, just in the interest of time, I think we should we save questions to, okay. Okay. So again, get on the interest list for developments that are currently under construction. Just a bit about inclusionary housing. This is just another way that affordable housing is developed in California. About a third of the housing we have is developed this way, and these are essentially market rate developments in which, depending upon the jurisdiction and whether or not the jurisdiction has an inclusionary housing ordinance, they may have a set aside of units, typically 10 to 20%, that are affordable. And so if you call around to developments that are market rate, you might want to ask whether or not they have any units that are specifically set aside as affordable. And some of those directories that we referred you to also list some of those developments in them. So just a bit about HUD 202 housing. This is housing that's specifically for seniors 62 plus. These are just some examples of those here in San Diego. And again, many of those are listed in some of the resources that we've talked about. Section 8 program, many of you, I'm sure, are familiar with the Section 8 program. So it provides a voucher to somebody, they go into the private market and find a unit. It's just that right now, for many housing authorities, their waiting lists are either closed or they're very long. But it's always good to get on the waiting list and see if you end up getting to the top. Here in San Diego, we have about 6 local public housing authorities. So these are the housing authorities. You'll likely want to call the one in which you live or work in. Many of them have preferences for individuals that live or work in their jurisdiction. So I'm going to kind of go through these because my time is nearing the end. So just a little bit more about Section 8 housing, and again, Felipe will go into some of that for the county's Section 8 program. Public housing is another resource, so when you contact the housing authorities, see if there's any housing that they own and operate, and try to get on those lists. And those lists are typically much shorter than the Section 8 waiting lists. And again, just some other housing search tips. And again, just keep your information current. Don't ignore anything that you receive from a housing development that you've applied to. And know that if you're denied housing, you may have a right to appeal. So you'll want to ask about that appeal process and know that those appeal processes typically have time limits on them. Okay, and there's my contact information. And again, I'm just going to see if we'll reserve questions to the end.
So we did save some time for questions, and just so that they can get through all their slides, if you guys can write down your questions, we'll get to you after. And thank you, Tricia. She will wait around and hang out. Yes. Okay, perfect. So I do want to introduce Felipe Murillo. He is an analyst for the Department of Housing and Community Development with over 16 years of affordable housing, real estate finance, and real estate management experience. For the last 9 years, his focus has been on affordable housing in the urban and unincorporated areas of San Diego County. Previously, he managed the county's Veterans Affairs Supportive Housing Program and several housing programs that provide rental subsidies for special needs populations. Currently, Mr. Murillo manages several HUD contracts in the county's Community Development Unit, where he also oversees the first-time homebuyer program. Felipe, welcome and thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. I want to thank everyone for joining us today. I do want to apologize in advance. My throat has been acting up lately, and it may cut out here and there. But I did want to make it a point to come here today, more than anything, because I have a personal tie to affordable housing. And when I was an early teenager, both my parents were both senior citizens. And my father suffered a horrific accident in which he was permanently disabled. So affordable housing for us was something that was a way of life. We had to go from apartment to apartment, looking for something that we could all afford and that my brothers and sisters could actually afford to live in. So I'll start my my presentation after with this. Which one is it? So my name is Felipe Murillo. I'm a housing analyst with the County of San Diego, Department of Housing and Community Development, also known as HCD. And our mission statement is to promote safe, affordable housing opportunities and improved communities in the San Diego region. And we strive to achieve these through our core programs. The rental assistance programs, for example, are offered to the public via an online application. And some of the other programs that we have available are offered through the community through what's called as a Notice of Funding Availability, also known as a NOFA. Eligible applicants of the NOFA include nonprofit and for-profit housing developers, as Tricia mentioned earlier, and also nonprofit organizations. So the county HCD offers these funding opportunities to ensure affordable multifamily housing and construction, as well as rehabilitation of affordable housing. And we provide this by offering gap financing at much lower rates than those charged by commercial institutions. NOFAs will typically incorporate guiding principles of the Live Well San Diego initiative, something that Supervisor Greg Cox talked about earlier today. The San Diego region is thriving when its community members are engaging, connecting, and flourishing. The NOFA process is an important tool to ensure the construction and acquisition as well as rehabilitation of affordable housing. Proposed developments must have the proportion of units compared to the total number of units in the project at an equal amount as what the county's investment is. What that means is that if the county invests 10% of the total project's cost, then roughly 10% of the units must be affordable. The County of San Diego Housing Authority administers several publicly owned rental housing units. These rental units are available to low-income families, senior citizens, and disabled persons. To be eligible, you must be 62 years of age or older, a disabled individual, or a low-income family. Additionally, you must either live in the County of San Diego or in one of the cities listed on the table. Also, your household income must not be over the 50% area median income, the table that Tricia described earlier, which kind of, like she mentioned also that depending on which development you go to, they're going to have different requirements. Some may require 30%, some may require 50, some may require 60. So that's something you also want to look at depending on what your income level is at. So another program that we provide is the rental assistance program for the Housing Choice Voucher, also known as the Section 8 voucher. Eligible families are selected off of the voucher wait list, and they're able to rent a unit in anywhere in the area that we serve, as long as the property owner is willing to participate in the program. Families must contribute at least 30% of their income, and the county will pay the rest to the landlord as long as it doesn't pass a certain payment standard. If the rent is too high, the unit may not be eligible for assistance. As of October 2015, out of the 10,000 vouchers that the Housing Authority has issued, over 4,000 of them have at least one senior citizen in the unit. Over 4,500 of them have some family member that's over the age of 62 years. What that means is that over 43% of our vouchers benefit seniors in some way. This added benefit allows seniors to maintain a safe living environment and accomplish a higher level of housing stability. The county also offers the home repair program for homeowners. The home repair program provides both deferred loans and grants for single-family home, owner-occupied, and mobile homes. The deferred loans are offered at 3%, simple interest, and calculated annually. The total amount borrowed must be repaid when the property changes hands or the recipient moves from the property. Owners may borrow up to $25,000 for repairs. The grant is available to mobile homeowners for up to $12,000 in repairs. Examples of some of the recent repairs that we've assisted on are replacing windows for energy efficient, repairing dilapidated roofs and roof leaks, fixing faulty electrical wiring, repairing plumbing leaks, and one of the most common is the leveling of mobile homes. Many mobile homes, after several years of disrepair, begin to settle, the pillars begin to sink into the ground, so that's a very common repair that we work with. Also, eligible applicants must be single-family homeowners or mobile homeowners, and the property must be owner-occupied. The household income for this program is at or below 80% of the area median income, which is one of the higher brackets. This concludes our presentation for today, and we'll open it up for questions. Thank you.
So if you have questions, I'm going to ask you to talk very loudly. I'm looking for another microphone, and I can't find another microphone. So we'll start right here with the gentleman in the front.
I thought you were going to talk about the assistance to affordable home ownership, but you have a program where you subsidize new home buyers.
We do have what's called a first-time home buyer program. I didn't touch on this presentation because our focus was on aging in place, but we do have I do have my email. If you'd like to give me a contact, it's right up there, and I can give you the details on how to apply for the program. Definitely.
For the home repair, are the people doing the repairs, are they have to be registered with your organization?
Once you're selected for the program, there is a list it's not vetted, but we do have a list of common contractors that we've worked with in the past. But you're free to choose a contractor of your choice. Mhm. Yes. So we do take assets into consideration, but depending on the program, it'll depend on what they count. Most of them will count about 2% of whatever income you generate from those assets. Sure. Go ahead.
Right, okay. Correct, yeah. Oh, okay. So, yeah, just so folks heard, so her question had to do with the developments that I was talking about in Section 8. Those are typically two sort of separate programs and qualifications. So the majority of the developments that we develop do not have Section 8 tied to that project. So you don't need to go through that Section 8 process. We contract with the property management company, and that property management company goes through sort of all the eligibility, and they determine whether or not you're income eligible and if you meet all the other eligibility criteria. And then your comment, yes.
The comment is, there are articles out there about the affordable housing crisis that's coming up for seniors. There was a study in Oakland, California, where they say the homeless population is getting sicker and
Yeah.
older. And I was very interested, I think you said it was 46% of the Section 8 vouchers are going to seniors. What are you anticipating as far as prevention of seeing that homeless population for seniors as the boomers start retiring more and we're getting older and sicker? Do you have any plans in place?
Thank you for the question was, are there any prevention measures being taken to prevent homelessness among seniors? And the answer is, it's not as clear as I'd like it to be, but the region as a whole is taking steps, and I myself am seeing a much wider, much broader attention being brought forth from the community, from the government, from the state, from the local agencies, and I think there's much more attention being placed on that. So, as far as any specific steps, I think there's a lot of small steps being taken, good steps. But overall, I think the region as a whole has really taken the fact that not just seniors, but all homelessness of all ages has become a high priority for everyone.
Well, I'm currently experiencing, I'm going through this with being homeless, losing my job after 20 years, and trying to find affordable housing for my income, and it's been horrendous. I can't even find a place. It's always a 3-year waiting list or a 10-year waiting list, so it's not being worked right now.
Right.
It's so sad that being just turning 62 and not retired yet,
Yeah.
that I have to go through that after working 20-something years on my job, and that is not being fixed right now.
Yeah.
I am homeless, living out of my car, and out of the list that you had, I had 3 lists, and I not once, I just found a place today through the Housing Commission that she said that one will be available for me on Thursday. But it's not in the area that I want, and it's not in the location, but I'm gonna accept it. But I'm
Yeah.
saying it's not a fix yet.
Yeah.
And there's too many homeless seniors out there that are homeless, and it's not being addressed.
Can you repeat that a little bit? I had to move up. Nobody in the back could hear anything.
Oh.
So if you could maybe give a little general thing about what the question was about.
I think it was more of a comment, correct? She was expressing her concern that there's not really enough housing to house everyone that needs it right now, and that's a common concern. I think both Trish and I can attest to that. That's something that we struggle with every day. Yeah. Go ahead.
Trish, you mentioned earlier that the funding in the state of California for building more developments has decreased like incredibly significantly. And because of that, how do you build more to
Right.
accommodate? It's on the same vein as all these other questions,
Right.
but how do you build more when the funds aren't there to build?
Right. Yeah, so her question has to do with just the lack of funding to develop the housing, and it is, it's true, and so there are efforts, of course, underway at the federal and state and local level to try to get more funding, and that's something that folks here can always advocate for. There are some measures at the state level. I think there was some funding that was recently included in the state budget for affordable housing funding, but it's almost never enough. And we have at the state level, there's never been really a permanent source, sort of a continuous funding coming from the state level to help build affordable housing. There's been a number of bonds that have been passed over the years, but those bonds have been, approved and been spent. So yes, it's the crisis. We have to become very creative and do what we can with the limited amount of dollars that there is. But Kim, did you have something?
So I just wanted to let everyone know that I was at Sacramento last weekend. Last weekend, we were advocacy for affordable housing for everyone, and it is
I know.
definitely.
I know. Can you stand up, Kim? Or, because they can't hear, I know. and we-
So I was at the Sacramento last week, took a homeless participant that I work with. And so, they are very aware at the state level what's going on in our state and in our community. And they are trying to pass some bills right now for affordable housing. And also is trying to work with a lot of the organizations like Tricia works with to try to get affordable housing for everyone. So we are, I
There's a woman in the back, sort of there in the middle, who's had her hand up for quite a while. Yes. I can. I don't know if everyone.
I want to know what the pros and cons are of rent controls, rather than putting everybody who is in a really tight space right now financially in the same community. It would be nice to
Oh.
have a more diverse community
Okay.
by living where you want, rather than where you're so happy.
Okay. So, yeah, I'm trying to understand if the question is about rent control, or is it about living in a community that's integrated, having affordable housing and living in an integrated community where somebody else is paying market rate housing, or?
Say, I went too far. I'm really wondering what would be the problem with having rent control so that the
Oh, okay.
rents in San Diego were more reasonable for people who have been accustomed
All right.
to paying regular rent.
Okay. I don't know, talk to your city council person, I guess. Anyone have a comment to that on rent control? Yes.
I heard Mayor Ken Faulkner on TV just before the election a week or so ago, talk about that. He said, talk to the companies that are building these properties. The bottom line is gonna happen.
Yeah, they're not going to do it unless. Right. Okay, yes, sir?
I wondered why we can't do more with tiny houses. There's a tiny house movement going on, and it seems like everywhere in San Diego you try to do tiny homes. I guess builders selling homes for $700,000 don't really want tiny homes. And so, but a lot of people who would rather live in a tiny home than not have anything. And the beauty
Right.
of tiny homes is that you can own them. The one way to be sure to become poor is to rent. And so we put all this money into rental properties and to, affordable housing is about affordable renting. But affordable renting is the one way to poverty. We need to have affordable ownership. And the start is with tiny homes. And why won't the county or the city or anybody allow tiny homes? What's wrong with it? People need a place to live.
Okay.
And we need to have tiny homes, tiny home communities.
So the comment was, thank you. I think the idea was that tiny homes is a great start. I personally agree with that. I'm not sure what the permitting requirements are, but I think we need more ideas like tiny homes. I think that is one of the keys to solving homelessness.
If I may, the permitting requirements are going to be very difficult because the people who sell unaffordable housing don't want it. And they control the planning process. And so the planning process is an impediment to humane, affordable ownership of homes, which everyone in this room needs. There's plenty of land. Land all over.
There was some lady in the back that had a question with her hands up.
I wanted to respond to him. There is tiny housing happening. There is an announcement in the Louisville Council that they are looking into it for homes. It is happening in San Diego. There's funding for it at the
Okay, we have limited time, so we're going to take one more question. In the very back, I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you.
Do handicapped people get any priority preference on the list, or is it handicapped and seniors all on one list for rental?
There is a preference for individuals that are disabled, as well as for senior citizens. So you will see the same list throughout, but there are some properties that solely serve senior citizens, or there are some agencies that provide supportive services and housing for disabled persons only. So what we can do is, I know we have a list in the back, a handout that has a number of resources. Also, my information is up on the board right now. If you want to take my email, you can email me and I can answer some other questions you may have.
And we are out of time. I I'm going to try to write down the website for aisevents.org so you guys can pull these slides from there. So just give me a few minutes and I'll try to do that. But we are out of time and the next session will start in just about 5 minutes. Thank you guys for coming. Appreciate it.